Good morning. It is Tuesday, December, excuse me, January 7th at about 6:10 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on scanning, spelled Sqanning. Made up word. Basically reference the idea of scanning. We are going to be scanning our body. Scanning is a purely physical technique. There's no book you need to read. There's no philosophy you need to study or memorize. As a seeker of answers, I've read many different types of philosophies, practiced many different types of physical disciplines, each of which I hoped would be a key to understanding myself and the world. And then around 10 years ago, I stumbled upon a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment by Thaddeus Golis, which gave me some insights into the universe and a way to approach life through this physical technique, which I call scanning. So let's begin. We're going to talk a little bit more about the philosophy today and some practice. If you've heard a lot of this before, which I'm sure you have, if you've seen these sessions, you can skip ahead forward. We don't spend as much time on the actual technique as I hope you will do on your own. The idea is that you will take these lessons and incorporate these practices into your own day, in your own time. I spend about a half an hour on these sessions, but typically when I practice on my own, I do about an hour. You could do whatever you want, 5 minutes is fine. But the idea is just to remind you how the technique works so that you can then take it into your own life and never have to come back and listen to these again. You'll know it. It's fairly simple, very simple to learn, challenging to practice and master. I've been doing it, as I said, for over 10 years, and I'm still just trying my best to master it, but it is challenging. But the payoff, the benefits are great. So again, Thaddeus Golis wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment back in the 70s, I think. He wrote it while sitting on the streets of Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. At first, it was a pamphlet of leaves of paper, which he had, which I think he printed up and handed out to people, but eventually it was published and distributed as a book, very thin volume, about 70-some pages. I read it, I loved it, I reread it, I read it again, I read it probably hundreds of times and finally memorized the book just because I got tired of trying to find the book. Now I can recite it by memory because I think it's so insightful. In it, he talks about the universe being broken into two basic processes, expansion and contraction. Let's see what that feels like. Contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion, release. You have just experienced the fundamental processes of the universe. Everything in the universe is either at any given moment contracting, squeeze your hands together, or expanding, release. How's that for simple? So you've just experienced what it feels like. So you think about anything in life. The objects around you are contractions. Materials have come together and formed a bottle, a pen, a desk, a person. We are a contraction. Materials, cells, substances have come together and formed us. And when we die, we will expand into dust and then possibly reform again as something else. So when you begin to look at life this way, as contraction, expansion, then you can pretty much assess everything, including yourself, as either in a state of contraction or expansion or vacillating between the two. Now, the interesting thing is you can't do both at the same time. You can't make a fist and release a fist at the same time. So a contraction can be lengthy, and it can vacillate, it'll become expanded, then go back to contraction, but it's never doing it at the same time. Knowing this, I began to study myself and realized that at any given moment in my day, I am either more contracted or expanded. Generally, when I was overly contracted, I felt bad. When I was expanded, I felt at peace. Now, you must contract. You must do your job. You must take on a name, an identity. You must make money. You must drive your car. These are all contractions. That's the stuff of life. But when we become overly contracted, if this is the continuum, contraction, expansion, overly contracted, we feel restricted, we feel limited, we feel impermeable, we are in conflict. Two contracted beings will smash up against each other. Two expanded beings will easily merge. So we seek expansion as a form of balance, contraction, expansion, centered, and relief. We do that either chemically, which is alcohol or drugs, which are a chemical expansion, which force our body to expand. Form of expansion is relaxation, obviously. Or we can come up with a technique, and there are many of them, yoga, all sorts of practices, meditation, which allow you to expand. So this is one of them. Scanning is simply one form of expansion, and there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. So that's what we practice here. And in particular, this is very important, scanning uses the muscles of the body to guide us into a state of expansion. Why? Because muscles can either do one of two things, just like the universe. They can either contract, make a fist, or they can expand, release. Note they can't do both at the same time. So if we can learn to guide our muscles into a more relaxed, expanded state, we can thereby guide our very being into an expanded state. The muscles lead the way. As you release musculature, make a fist, 3, 2, 1, release. Now, if you pay close attention, you can see what that felt like. Squeeze your fist, 3, 2, 1, and release. There was a sort of, every time you release muscles, you expand. You give yourself more space. You make yourself more permeable. You breathe more freely. You think more clearly. If we can use the muscles as a guide, we have a technique whereby we can bring ourselves into a more expanded, peaceful, calm, open, permeable, available, joyful place. And that's all we want to do. Move ourselves from this to this until we are centered. We need both in life, equal amounts. Contraction to get things done, to do, to exist as a human being. Expansion to release, let go, and be at peace with ourselves. Come back to what I call the original self, a state of nothingness. And a very important word which popped into my head last night as I was practicing, which I always do, at some point in the middle of the night, I will always wake up and have difficulty falling asleep, so I will scan to get myself to sleep. And I will be at war with myself because my mind is racing and thinking thoughts. And because you can't release muscular tension and think at the same time, I begin scanning so as to bring myself into an expanded state, thereby quieting my mind. What I realize is all it is a choice. A choice. If you want to master the practice of scanning, you will make 1,000 choices. You will choose repeatedly. Feeling over thought. Feeling over thought. Thought is contractive, the assembling of ideas. Feeling is expansion, release, the opening up of the emotions. So when you're lying in bed or when you're sitting and you're trying to expand or relax or calm yourself down or center yourself, you will have to make repeatedly a choice. Shall I focus on my thoughts, which are a contraction, or shall I focus on my body, my feelings, which are an expansion and release muscular tension? That's the discipline of scanning. That's the discipline. That's why you practice. Because if you're anything like me, and you may not have these issues, you're constantly thinking. Your mind is what agitates you. Your mind is what keeps you awake at night. Your mind is what gets you into trouble when you are having to make a decision and perhaps make the wrong decisions based on fear. So you will practice scanning as a means to practice and get more disciplined at making this choice, the choice being to release muscular tension. And that's all we're going to do. You will find that as you begin to move the dial, because you can't contract and expand at the same time, as you begin to release muscular tension and expand, you have stopped contracting. The minute you release muscular tension, you've expanded. Maybe an infinitesimal amount, but you have expanded. So the journey begins with very small steps. Okay, that's enough philosophy for today. Let's start. We start every session with what I call the preliminary steps in scanning: deep breaths, stillness, and silence. I always say if you take nothing about these sessions, but this part, the preliminary, you will have learned how to expand ever so slightly. And you'll begin to, as I said, it's very important, notice the changes. Scanning is the study of your very being. It's very important when you practice scanning to pay attention. How does it feel when I do this versus when I do that? Note the change. Scanning is a shift. It is a change from contraction to expansion. And it's important that you stay aware of how that feels so that you can return to that and create it again yourself. And you will get better and better at it. So we start with a preliminary. Deep breaths, stillness, and silence. Deep breaths is expansive as opposed to holding your breath, which is contractive. Stillness is the opposite of doing, activity. So again, it's expansive, stillness. These are all moving you into a place of nothingness. And silence. Because words, the very words I'm speaking now, are a contraction. I always say these sessions are somewhat contradictory because I'm using contraction to teach expansion. But it's a necessary thing. As I said, contraction is part of life. Ultimately, when you get to the end of a session, you'll forget why you're here. None of what I said will be in your mind anymore. You'll be in a place of nothingness. And I often say as well, the sooner you get away from the words, the ideas, which are contractions, and into the actual expansion, the practice, the experience, the feeling of nothingness, the better. Deep breath, stillness, and silence. Deep breath. Stillness, 15 seconds. Don't move a muscle. When I say still, I mean absolutely still. This sends a very clear signal to your body that you have stopped doing. And silence. Don't say a word. Let your thoughts go. They will continue, but don't generate any thoughts on your own. And if you do, just let them fly away. 15 seconds. Here we go. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. And register what changes you feel. How do I feel now versus 15 seconds ago? What has changed? Just make a note of it. It can be very, very, very subtle, very small. You might say, I don't feel anything different. That's okay. You spent 90% of your time in life contracting. It's a very difficult habit to break. So at first you may be screaming to get back to your contracted state. You may want to go back to what you feel is a comfortable, safe place, contracted. So you have to knock at that door a few times, but just see if you feel the difference. You've made a choice to expand. Let's continue. Deep breath, stillness and silence for 30 seconds. Continue to breathe. Deep breath. And just as a reminder, we're bringing ourselves from a contracted state into an expanded state, a world of thought and thinking and doing, into a place of silence, stillness, quiet. We've just moved the dial, maybe 1%, but we moved the dial. See how that feels. Last time, this time for 60 seconds, deep breath. Continue to breathe, but absolute stillness. Deep breath. And again, pay attention to what that felt like, what you were experiencing, how it feels different from what you felt before. If your mind is racing, if you have 1,000 thoughts going through your mind, that is your contractive self. It's good to pay attention because what, again, you're doing is building an awareness of this continuum. What's contracting, what's expanding. Those are contractive impulses. Your mind is thinking, trying to sort through, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I wasting my time? I'm not feeling anything. It's trying to analyze. Analysis is a contractive process. Let that happen, but be aware that that's one part of you. The other part of you is silent. So through your physical choices, through sitting in stillness and silence, you've chosen to direct your very being into a more expanded state. You will be, in effect, at war with yourself, because you will be at war with your contractive self, which wants to continue contracting. But the body, what's great about the muscular approach to this, is that you have control of your body. You can continue to bring yourself into an expanded state through stillness and silence and what we're going to begin in a moment, muscular release, until those voices start to lose the battle and quiet and dissipate and float away. But initially, there's always a struggle. I always say I've done this for over 10 years. When I begin scanning at night, when I'm trying to go to sleep or get myself back to sleep, it is a literal war. My mind so desperately wants to approach the moment through analysis, through thought, through words, through ideas, through holding on to concepts that possibly in my mind make me feel secure or safe. My money, my career, whatever it is I need to think about, what problems I have, I need to keep thinking about to solve. That is my habit. It's a deeply ingrained habit. So you're at war with your very self, with your habits. The muscular release, again, it's not a philosophy. You're not going to use a thinking problem to get out of a thinking problem. You're going to use a muscular approach. The muscles, because we can easily make a fist and release a fist, they're, if you will, a dumb, simple method to quiet the mind. Releasing muscular tension, deep breaths, stillness, and silence. But if you feel like it's not working because you continue to hear thoughts in your body's agitated, that's okay. This is a war. This is a battle that you will get better and better at. You will become more and more disciplined at the practice of scanning until that part of you is equally strong as the part of you that wants to think, to do. And you will begin to feel, unlike when you feel like you need to use external processes to expand, alcohol or drugs, you'll feel like you now have a tool. It's part of you. It's as much a part of you as the thinking part of you, the part of you that knows how to let go. That will be equally strong, and the battle will become less dramatic. And you will bring yourself to center on demand when you feel like you need it. It'll be a new habit. Instead of thinking when you're stressed, I need to think more, I need to do more, I need to have a drink, I need to smoke a joint, you'll go, I need to scan. I need to scan. And you'll sit in stillness and silence, you'll take deep breaths, and you'll do what we're going to now begin, which is the nuts and bolts of the technique, or release muscular tension. So let's begin. Deep breath. Now this is the core of scanning, the release of muscular tension. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. 3, 2, 1, release. See that sensation? It's a sensation. I want you to pay close attention. Squeeze, see what that feels like? That's what we do. That's contracting, thinking, doing, acting, collecting things, building things, writing things, going places. Contraction takes effort, takes energy. It's good. It's the stuff of life. But the opposite, the other side of that is expansion. 3, 2, 1, and release. What does that feel like? Deep breath. Now, there's a tendency in life to think that anything we want to accomplish, any life we want to live, must be made of contraction. Getting up, doing, deciding, yes, true. But if we want to stay in balance, if we want to continue to do effectively without getting so tied up in knots that we are then restricted, constrained, limited, resistant, then we must also bring expansion into our life. So through this practice, you're training yourself of the value of the opposite of what you typically do. If I've got a half an hour, and I would normally take a half an hour to think, write, do emails, read the internet, whatever. Now I'll say, well, how about if I take 20 minutes of that to do that, but 10 minutes of that to do nothing? Nothing. To go to a place of nothingness. And that will be unfamiliar. You'll say, well, that's a waste of time. Well, time is a construct, is a structure that we've devised to organize our lives. When you go to a place of nothingness, expansion, the time is always now. There is no division of time. So you won't worry about wasting time. So scanning brings that into your life until you have achieved contraction, expansion, balance, centered. Here we go. We're going to move through the body, through what I call the muscular zones. You can do this however you want. Pick whatever areas you wish. These are the areas I've divided my own body into to approach this. I start with the simplest, the muscles of the face, because you can see it if you look in the mirror. We use the face a lot, so we're familiar with how it feels to be constricted or relaxed. So on my count, release all the muscular tension you can in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. If you've ever been to a hypnotist show and they said 3, 2, 1, you're under, and people go like this, well, that's what's happened. He's basically, through the power of suggestion, gotten them to expand instantly. 3, 2, 1, and release. So, hypnotize yourself. Make that suggestion. Release that muscular tension. 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel it. Study it. See what it felt like to release muscular tension. A sagging sensation. A kind of a dopey, dumb feeling. You're letting go of all thought. You're allowing your body to release muscular tension, which takes energy. So in effect, you're giving it a break. 3, 2, 1, the face, and release. Zone 2. And again, I'll move through these quickly just to remind you how it works. On your own, please take as much time as you can afford. The more time you spend scanning, the better you will get at it. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. 3, 2, 1, and release. If it seems unfamiliar, that's all right. When the practice is new, you go, I don't know what that feels like to release tension in the top of my head. Well, you can use imagery, breaking an egg on the top of your head and imagining it sliding down the side of your head. Well, that's how the muscles feel when they release. They just suddenly droop. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. This is scanning. You are now in the core, in the practice of this technique, releasing muscular tension. Zone 3, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, let it go, and release. Now, you may find yourself surprised at how much muscular tension you actually are maintaining just sitting in a chair. At night, lying in bed. When you begin to practice scanning, you'll discover how much tension you, as in the normal course of a day or night, you hold. Unnecessary tension. When you come to a place of complete expansion, a place of nothingness, release, silence, stillness, calm, you'll go, wow, I had no idea how much muscular tension I was carrying just as a part of my life, just out of habit. So while it's unfamiliar now, you will begin to recognize it, and you will get better and better at it. Back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Imagine, if you will, someone who is an expert at scanning. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I would consider myself a student of scanning. But if you ever got to the place, which I hope I do someday, where you could snap your fingers and completely release all the muscular tension in your body, what a tool. What an amazing tool. You would perform better if you were an actor. You would hit the ball better if you were a baseball player. You would think more clearly if you were an accountant. If you were a politician, you would be able to make smarter choices. When you're relaxed, everything functions more effectively. The more you practice, the better you will get at this technique. And the more readily you will achieve that state which makes your life more joyful, more balanced, more open, more available. Zone 4, the next, 3, 2, 1, and release. Let's do all 4. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. The back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. And the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. And if you ever find yourself going, I'm losing it. I don't understand what that feels like. Squeeze your hands together. That's contraction. 3, 2, 1, and release. That's expansion. That's all you're doing. Very, very simple. Deep breath. Very important also to understand that you should and must customize this technique to suit your body. If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that everyone experiences everything individually. I may feel one way about this event or this phenomenon or this item. We may have similar ideas or feelings, but you will definitely have your own unique experience. Same with scanning. Find ways to incorporate this into your life in a way that you can experience. The more readily you can feel a place of muscular release, go to that area. Start with the areas that are most familiar. The face for me is very simple. 3, 2, 1, and release. I always know what that feels like. Sometimes areas I go, I'm not quite sure how to release that. We'll work on that. But customize it. The important thing is that you spend time feeling instead of thinking, being instead of doing. Zone 5, the shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. As you release one area, you may feel other areas release as well. That's typical in scanning. The body is one piece. We may think of it as sections, arms, legs, knees, feet, head, but everything that happens in one area is experienced by the other. So as you release tension in one area, you might feel another area release as well. You're building momentum incrementally until at some point your body gets where you're going, likes it, and says, okay, let's just go there. You get past the initial battle into a place of complete release. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, let them drop and release. If you can look in a mirror and see the change, it helps. That's why I say the face, 3, 2, 1, release. The shoulders, watch, 3, 2, 1, release. Okay, so anything that encourages that. Zone 6 is the chest, the stomach, front of the waist, all the way down the back to the waist. That's a big zone. That's the torso. 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Pay attention if you begin to feel experiences of tingling, warmth, throbbing. This is the body releasing muscular tension, allowing the blood vessels to pump more freely, openly, and effectively. These are all signs of expansion. If you feel a sudden desire to take deep breaths, that's a sign of expansion. You've been holding your breath, which is contractive. Now as you're moving into a more expanded state, your body feels free to breathe, to expand through the diaphragm, through the lungs, everywhere. Zone 7 is the pelvis. The pelvic region is very important, highly sensitive, area of sexuality and waste elimination. You may feel that you have a certain clenching that happens with that area. See if you can unclench the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. You may feel yourself settle ever so slightly into your seat. 3, 2, 1, and the pelvis, release. And again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. This is a binary technique. You're either contracting or expanding. 1 or 2. 1 or 2. Or as they say in binary computer science, 0 or 1. You can't do one or the other at the same time. You're either contracted or expanded. You're choosing expansion. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. Final zone, because we're coming up to about a half an hour, and I don't like to go longer than a half an hour with these sessions. Down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. Focus on your feet. Just experience what your feet feel like. And focus is a very important aspect of scanning. Paying attention to how different parts of your musculature feel. And then on my count, release however much tension you can, even if it's 1% in your feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. So we've touched on the basic muscular zones of the body. Take a deep breath. Let's move through the whole body. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. The neck, zone 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, let them drop and release. The chest, the torso, the back, 3, 2, 1, and release. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And the final zone, zone 8, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. Sit for a moment and register the changes. There's no rules with scanning in terms of how much time you should spend. You will see that the more time you spend scanning, the greater the benefits, the more readily you'll experience the sensations of scanning, the opening, the release, the relaxation, the availability, the calm, the kindness, the calmness, the joy, because it feels great. When you are successful, and you're always successful, even if you just do this, but when you are particularly successful, you'll feel a sort of peace and calm and nothingness and emptiness. You will have let go of all your ideas about what you needed to worry about or concern yourself with. You will forget your name. You will forget your plan for the day. You will forget your worries and concerns. You will feel less pain, less discomfort. You will simply feel your heart beating. You'll be aware of the pleasure that comes from taking a breath of air, how that courses through your body. You'll be aware of the sounds in the room. You'll truly experience what it is to just be a human being, what I call the original self. And it can be very pleasurable and very peaceful and very reassuring because you sense that you exist. So much what we do in life is to feel. We do extreme activities or things that make us feel, because if we're not feeling, we're not alive. So we reach out for ways to feel, to experience ourselves. But when you go to a place of nothingness, you will feel yourself. And it will be deeply satisfying because you will feel that you are enough, that it is thrilling to be a human being. There are struggles, there is pain, but when you can come to a place of peace, it is a thrilling experience, which you'll only have once. And when it's over, who knows what it'll be. But when you have that sensation, it's very satisfying, very reassuring, and it allows you to move through life in a calmer, more confident, more peaceful, more joyful way. That's the goal. So that's scanning, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.